doing the Concertino in G major, Opus 6, number 4 by Adolf Huber. And this one we're going to do with the piano here. Kind of hard to keep up with, actually. Just there's some tempo changes and stuff. But we need to be aware of the rhythms first and foremost. So taking apart like 30 is going to be a little easier for rhythms because we've seen these before, right? We've seen the gooseberries and we've seen the huckleberries. So that measure 30, gooseberry, apple, gooseberry, apple, gooseberry, huckleberry, gooseberry, huckleberry. There's just a lot of that. So maybe, you know, just even like an open string rhythm there. Here's your first two measures. And that spot there, by the way, oftentimes we might fall behind because of the slurs. So maybe we take the slurs out and we make sure we have the rhythm. Dum, da, 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 dum, right? Gooseberry, huckleberry, and then we add the slurs back in. So that whole section is probably what we might call the low-hanging fruit of this one as far as just being a little bit easier for rhythms. And then the final page as well, 99, that honestly, even though there's a lot going on and it felt like there the piano was going a little faster, so it's going, whoa, we're gonna really pep it up here. But I'm taking 104 here on the metronome, and this one too, like at 99 we have huckleberry pizza, right? We've seen those before. Huckleberry, huckleberry pie, apple, huckleberry pizza, huckleberry pie, pie. Doesn't even give us time to breathe. Thankfully, we're not singing this. And then I think a lot of times with the double stops, we end up accidentally adding some hesitations into the mix. So watching out at like 103, apple, 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 apple. Even though the double stops are there, we don't want to hesitate going into them. We just have to go for it. And what we could do to practice that is we could just practice the melody notes. So we could just practice like the first two notes and then just go to the higher notes for these three for the double stop ones. And then put the double stops back in. And then 105 would be like huckleberry pie, and then huckleberry, huckleberry, apple, apple. And then these double stops coming up in 107 and 108, they can also throw us off sometimes. Thankfully, it's just open strings. I guess we do have a true double stop, those guys, but mostly it's just open strings. But you could always, you know, just practice the, say, the top line. That's mostly the melody there. Be gooseberry, huckleberry, apple, apple, gooseberry, huckleberry, apple, apple. Right, and then put the double stops back in there. There we go. Right, and then we have huckleberry, apple, huckleberry, apple. So watching that, you know, we're not getting into a flurry of activity at that point, and we're not letting our apples get too long or too short. We're not shorting them, we're keeping them long. Huckleberry, apple, huckleberry, apple, huckleberry, huckleberry, apple, apple. So lots of that on this page here. And then at the very end, if we have time, we want to try and get down to the frog four. And I felt like it was a scramble to the end there, but yeah, hopefully we'll have some time to get down because those are just 16th note pickups. So we don't need a lot of bow, and we do definitely need a lot of bow for the half notes. So we need to manage our bow well that way. A little up, down, and then another up, down. So those are kind of for rhythms, probably the easier parts. Now for rhythms, let's go back to kind of the main theme here. And if we're listening to this metronome, we need to make sure that especially the dotted notes we're holding long enough. So in the beginning we have a half note. So there, da, da, dum. So that measure 2, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So the and, we have to make sure we fit in the and. It's going to come in after we hear that second click. that out. And then similar, this next measure. Da, 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 da. And we jump in. So that first finger is going to be in between the beats. Right? It's not really where the accent goes. It's on the 2, but we want to make sure we jump in there. So let's do that whole phrase. We've got... And there's another one. So, and right in between the beats. 1, 2, and 3. So that is, you know, just kind of a lot of stuff we have to deal with there, like these kind of ties or these dotted rhythms. So just watching out for that we're hearing, basically we're going to hear when we see a dotted quarter note in these situations, or when we see some of these ties, like in that measure 8, that we're going to hear 2 clicks, but then the next note is actually going to come in between the beats. It happens quite a few times there. And then just for fingerings, we can definitely look at 45, and there's also a little bit of stuff going on here at 16. So let's look at that first. So for 15 going into 16, we have first an accidental C sharp. So let's just talk about the main key signature here. We have 1 sharp for most of this, except for that second page a little bit. 1 sharp, so it means that we're going to have the low 2s on the A and E, right? And then we have in 15 that accidental, so we're going to do a high 2 there. And there's our 3, and then this E flat is right next to it. And now if we have a memory of where that 3 was on the A string, we can find the 2. It's like a whole step back, but on the other string, on the E string instead of the A string. And so we're going from that 4, and then we're kind of using 3 as like a transitional sort of reference point, and we're finding that 2. So... And then from the 2, now I've got these fingers free, but I can find my low 1. So I'm reaching back to the end of the fingerboard. So there's my F natural. And then don't play an open E. We have to go back to the low 4 here because it's still in the same measure. So that E flat is carrying over. And so for that one, I kind of, even though my 3 isn't going down, I use my 3 as a little guide. So I still have like this feeling of, okay, there was my 3. From there I found the 4. From there I found the 2 and the 1. But we see that my hand is still in this kind of a shape, kind of like this shape basically, right? But it's just kind of going to hover, and then I'll go back and find my E flat there using the 3, and then I'm going to have the 1 just like crawl across to the A string. So it's a B flat. And the 2 is going to crawl across, and it's going to be a low 2 here, but it's a whole step up from the 1. And then the 3 is a whole step up. So it's basically this pattern through all of that, and no open E. So that part's a little tricky. Fingering wise, you know, just watch out. There is an accidental C sharp in like 36 and 37. So we do get a high 2 for those measures on the A string a little bit. And also that happens at measure 40. And then when we get to 43, we have these. And by the way, you might see some fingerings down below that are different, that we're not used to. Those are, we have a little bit in 15 and 16, those are 3rd position fingerings. And here we have a little bit of 2nd position possibilities, but I would stick with the 1st position is fine. So we'll take the upper fingerings just in general in this piece. And then after those 3s, we're gonna play this E flat, so that's that low 4 again. And then it's a C natural, so we're going back to the low 2. And then a low 1 F natural, and then low 2. Now over on the D string, we're dropping the F sharp and we're adding 2 flats, getting into this 6/8 time signature. And then what we're going to have is B flat and E flat. So we're going to start with 45. It's going to be like a low 1 on the A string, and then to find the 3, we want to think 2 big whole steps to get up to it. And then the 2 is going to be still like that kind of whole step in between those 2 fingers, but on the E string. So there's your ba-da-dum, and then still low 1, but on the E string, ba-da-dum. So really stretch out fingers. And then that's going to just keep going for a long time, because even when you go to 46 and you go over to the D string for a moment, that's the same too. It's just across and it's far up from the 1, just another whole step, and then you just keep going. And then in 48, you do have a high 2. So there, if you remember where that 3 was, you'll just scoot the 2 up for a second, and then it will still be down on the D string. So basically, you're just kind of crawling around like this kind of stuff. A lot of this stuff. And then when we get to finally, we have a 4th finger, when we get to, 61 there, that's going to be your E flat. The other E flat that we might encounter would be on the D string, low 1 on the D string, but honestly, I don't really, there's one of them. There's one in 56. So that'd be the other E flat that you'd have to play, down there. So that measure, we have an E natural, so regular 1, and then, actually we should just play that spacing because that is a little funny. So we'll go back to 61 here in a second, but 56, so we're gonna do regular 1 there. Low 2, so those are touching. 3 is a whole step up. And now you see I open up that gap again, I reach my 1 back. There's the E flat. Okay, so anyway, the other E flat I was gonna mention is here at 61, we have close 3 and 4. But all these 2s and 3s and 1s are gonna still have that whole step spacing in that whole section. Except for like an accidental, like this high 2. And that one, that's a high 2. So we have to bring it back. And low 1. And here's still an E flat. So no open E's here. High 2, low 2, low 4, right? Open A's are okay though. So those are some fingering things that we'll need to watch. There's one more E flat that we'll need to watch when we get to 75. So again, we're still in this pattern. We've got 3 feeling like it's a little reach, but really we should just kind of balance, like 1, 2, 3. They're just all squared off there. And then finish up that section. So the other things we just might be questioning perhaps, like what does this 4 at the beginning mean? What does this 4 where we just ended up mean? That's just a shorthand for writing 4 bars or 4 measures. So that's why I was doing this in the beginning. And then they have a piano cue there. In both situations, they have 1 measure at the beginning of the piece, 2 measures there as we finish the 2nd page. And it's just a little helpful for us to jump in so we see, oh, that's what the piano is going to be playing. That's the rhythm. So then I'll know when to jump in. And structurally, like there's no repeat signs or anything. So I think it's just, kind of getting in, honestly, at like 45. That's a little bit tricky there, and feeling out how fast that's going to go. We see the 8th note equals a quarter note right there. So what that means, it's helpful actually, but it just means that like whatever you felt as the 8th note in the previous part. So like when we were running down, right? Da 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 da. There's the 8th note. So now that becomes like our quarter note here, which is kind of silly because it's in 6/8. Maybe they meant dotted quarter note. That's too fast. Da 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 da. Yeah, I don't know. They didn't really seem to follow that with the piano. But anyway, that's what that means. It seems like it should be the dotted quarter note though, and that seems too fast. So they tried, but honestly, I think there's a little bit we need to do there to fix that up. I think if we did the metronome in that section, because it says 104 at the beginning, but more what they were doing, I would find like a dotted quarter note beat, and probably, let's see. Yeah, it was more like 60. Da 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 da. Our rhythms for that, since we're counting dotted quarter notes, we could do chocolate, chocolate, pumpkin, pumpkin, chocolate, chocolate, pumpkin, pumpkin. And then when we get to the largamente, which just means kind of long, and we hear the pianos doing their solo there, so we don't want to rush them, but that would be Pie, 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 pumpkin. There we go. Pie, 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 pumpkin pie. Pie, pumpkin, pumpkin pie. That sort of thing. So anyhow, yeah, some things always seemed a little funny to me with their marking there with the eighth note equals quarter note at 45. But yeah, I mean, assuming they figured out exactly what they wanted to say there, that would work out. There could be something there. Yeah, I'd have to think about it to figure out what that would be to fix that. But anyway, those are some ideas for this one. We just need to watch out for, I think, first and foremost, rhythms. There's a lot of rhythms going on, and we want to just make sure that, especially as we're learning, we're not learning with any sort of rushing or hesitations. You know, if we can add the metronome sooner than later, that'd be awesome. And then the key changes, going from G major, and then I should have mentioned it, but when we have the two flats, that's G minor. So switching it up. All right, enjoy.